and welcome back to the channel. Free range living. I'm Pascale and I'm milking my dairy goat Dot. She's 3 years old and she's been in milk now for 6 months and she's starting to slow down production now. But I wanted to share with you before we dry them up or before milk production really slows down, I wanted to share with you how we use our goat milk, because that's a really common question everybody asks us, or what do you do with all that milk all the time? So in peak production we were getting about 5 litres a day from both our girls. At the moment we're getting between 2 and 3 litres a day from our 2 goats. Jude, my other goat, she's not with us right now. She's in another stall. I'll probably milk her in there separately. She's just injured her foot. So I'll be sharing with you how I use the milk each day. I don't milk them every day and store all the milk until the end of the week. I find it's a lot easier to deal with the milk every day as it comes. And so we just make quite quick products, and then at the end of the week, if I've got excess milk left over, I'll tackle a hard cheese like Feta or sort of goat style cheddar. So if you're contemplating keeping dairy goats, or if you have them yourself and you're thinking about ideas of what to do with all the beautiful fresh raw milk, then stick around and I'll share with you what I do each day to turn this goat milk into different products. We do drink a lot of it just straight up. Constance and I love drinking fresh goat's milk, and we do use it a lot in cooking for things like custards and white sauces and things like that. But we do spend a lot of time fermenting and doing traditional preservation techniques just to extend the life of the milk and make delicious products like Chevre, goat's cheese, Kefir and Yoghurt. Okay, so this milk is from last week and we need to use it up, so I'm going to be making feta cheese and then we'll roll out with the rest of the week's milk. So I've got 6 litres here, and I've got a 7 litre pot. So you want to try and get the pot roughly the same size as the amount of milk you're going to be using. You just want to be maintaining a steady temperature while the curds are setting and also while you're cutting the curds. Okay, so that's all the previous week's milk gone in here that's left over. So it's the oldest milk that was in here was 4 days old. So I'm just going to heat this up on a really low heat, get it to temperature, ready to add our cultures. Today's milk is getting turned into, you just saw me straining it there, it's getting turned into yogurt. So I will bring that up to a simmer and then turn it off, and then we'll reduce it to between 40 and 45 degrees and add cultures, and then put it in the dehydrator to keep temperature overnight to incubate. And I've just sterilised the equipment for making the feta. Now ordinarily with milk from our goats, as soon as I've milked the girls, I will come in and I'll strain it into bottles or jars and put it into the freezer straight away. That removes any of the goaty flavours and just looks after it the best. But I knew I was going to make yoghurt today with my first lot of milk, because we still had milk in the fridge and we were running low on yoghurt. So there was no rush, because you're going to I'm pasteurising it, and by the time you add the yoghurt cultures in there, it sours off. You don't really notice that it was sitting on the bench warm, but it was sitting, so it was sitting out for a couple of hours before I got time to turn the camera on and chat with you now. So this will come up quite quickly. I've just got to keep my eye on it, because once I found as well is if you go beyond it, I can actually just add a bit of cold milk from the fridge, which is great, but if you don't have that option, it takes a while for it to come back down, especially in pots, like really well insulated pots like this copper one.
Once the milk got to temperature, which was 76 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees Celsius, I added my feta cultures and kid lipase powder and then left the milk for an hour. I've brought my milk from my yoghurt up to a simmer for a few minutes and then turned off the heat and put the lid on my saucepan. Even though it has quite an intense flavour, Constance just loves this feta cheese, and I'm using an earlier batch for a little salad to go with tonight's dinner. After the milk has rested for an hour, I measure out the required rennet into a cup of cold water, then add it all to the pot, stirring vigorously for 20 seconds to distribute evenly. I then use the cheese curd spoon to try and stop the milk from moving around too much.
We got the milk for the yoghurt simmering. I just simmered that for a few minutes and then I've put it aside to cool to 45 degrees. You can actually speed that up by putting it in a sink of cold water and mixing, but I was busy so I just left it. I added the lipase and the cultures to our milk for our feta. Left that for an hour and then I added half-ish. You saw I accidentally spilled a bit of rennet into the cup as I was pouring, a half-ish teaspoon of rennet to the milk as well. It's not a super strong rennet that I'm using. If you have a really strong one that might be a little bit too much, you can over rennet your cheese and it makes it not a very nice texture, the curds. So I'm gonna look now, it's been 45 minutes, I'm gonna check to see for a clean break. Clean break means that the whey, you can sort of see that the whey is separating from the curds, and if that's happening then we can start cutting the curds. Just cutting straight down into the curd. Okay, now I switch it so I can go perpendicular to my other cuts. As you can see, I'm not being very precious about it, I'm just cutting. Okay, so now you've got diamond shapes. Now you're just gonna work this way so that our long pillars of curd are turning into little squares, little cubes. You can see where I haven't been. All right, so I just leave that now for 10 minutes. We'll fix up any curds that are too big after it's had a little 10-minute rest.
After leaving the curds for 10 minutes, I stirred them up and went through and cut up any longer curds that I missed from the initial cut. At this stage, it is also important to make sure that the curds and the whey maintain the temperature required. After an hour of stirring the curds every 10 minutes, it is time to strain them into a colander lined with muslin cloth. I like to wet down the muslin cloth with boiling water to sterilise it and hold it in place ready to receive the curds. The curds are strung up like this and left to drain and stitched together for 24 hours. The milk for our yoghurt has come down to temperature, so I've added our cultures and placed it in the dehydrator at 45 degrees Celsius overnight. The next evening I unwrapped my ball of feta and cut it into larger slices, placing in a glass container and coating liberally with salt. This will sit out on the bench for the next 3 days to firm up and release more whey and ripen in flavour. The recipe that I used for my goat feta is from Molly Nolte's website, Fiasco Farm. It makes a fantastic tasting and authentic feta cheese. If you're interested, I've put a link to her website in the description. It's a wonderful resource for all things dairy goats, not just cheese making. With the leftover whey from feta making, I'm putting together a quick ricotta cheese. You can do this with the whey only, but it makes quite a small yield, so if I have a spare bottle of milk in the fridge, I like to add it also, and then we end up with a bit more product at the end of the process. To make ricotta, you bring the whey up to near boiling until you start to see the curds forming in the yellow whey. Then you strain into a colander lined with cheesecloth with a large pot underneath to catch the whey. The next day you scoop the drained curds into a jar and place in a fridge, and your ricotta is ready to eat. I prefer not to salt at this stage, just in case I end up using the ricotta for cooking in desserts. It's very versatile and we use it in a whole variety of ways, including in gnocchi, pasta dishes, baking, and layered in meat or vegetable bakes, like this beef and eggplant bake Constance and I are putting together right now. I have a lot of whey in here from doing the Feta and then turning it into ricotta. But we're going to just strain a bit more whey into here from the yogurt. So I found that goat yogurt is a little bit too runny for Constance to eat by itself. It's a little bit more like drinking yogurt. The best method for it to be thick, I found, is to put it in the dehydrator once you've added those cultures and maintain it at that consistent 45 degrees. You know it's been held at 45 degrees for a full 10 hours. And then we put it into the fridge for 24 hours to set. And then I strain it. Just sterilize with some hot water. Yogurt. So here I am straining the yogurt the next day and it has lost a lot of whey, transforming from 2 litres of runny yogurt to just over 1 litre of thickened yogurt. With today's milk, I'm going to be making Chevre or goat's cheese, Chevre, if you want to pronounce it in French. And it's probably the easiest cheese to make and very, very quick. I'll show you how quick it is right now. The only thing that slips me out with this cheese is that you need a very, very, very small amount of rennet. I have in here rennet diluted in water. I put 8 tablespoons of rennet in here and then put 4 drops in, because you need, with the rennet that I have, you need half a drop of rennet for 2 litres of milk for a half gallon of milk. Some rennets are even stronger than that and you only need a 1/4 drop. So that's also where I've been slipped up with this cheese, is that every time I switch rennets, I can't always get the same brand, and every time I switch rennets, I have to figure out what the quantity is to get the perfect texture. If you put too much rennet in, it's very grainy. It tastes okay and it's really good for cooking, but I don't think it's as nice for just eating on its own and slathered over bread. So let me show you. You literally take the warm milk from the goat and strain it into the pot that you're going to use to make your cheese. As long as my strainer stays in place. There you go. Then you add some cultures, any cultures that are for soft cheese, goat's cheese, creme fraiche are fine. I'm using Floridanca, but there's plenty of different options. These are freeze dried and I just sprinkle like 30 or 40 little bits of freeze dried on top. And then you add your rennet. So I'm just adding a tablespoon, which is a half drop. A tablespoon of water with a half drop of rennet in it. Just give it a stir to make sure the rennet's not all in one spot. And this is sterilised with hot water, but I don't think you have to be too pedantic. You're doing it with raw milk, so. Yep, so you just stir it like this. And then you leave it to incubate, preferably in a warm place. You wanted to try and keep it around like
that mid-20s temperature. So I just put it, like try and keep it as warm as it is now from out of the goat, which is actually probably closer to 30. So I just put it inside our shuttle chef that we used a lot on the boat if you've been with us since the boat. Let me put the lid on this and I will get it out to show you. Here's our shuttle chef. So it is like a giant thermos really, a giant hot box if you want. And I've got some Chevre that I made yesterday. Sitting in here to show you all how it looks after a day. So you leave it for 24 hours. This is yesterday's Chevre, and you can see that the whey has come away and you've got like a yogurty cheese in there. So there's lots of things you can do with it now once it's like this. You can scoop it into little baskets, different size baskets, and have it straining and aging on the bench for a few days. You salt it, and that's quite nice. But actually our favourite way to have it is to just strain it through a cheesecloth bag just for a day, and then to just release the whey and then salt it and marinate it in olive oil and different herbs and spices. This way too, in these baskets you can age them and then coat them in herbs. That's really nice as well. So there's actually lots of options with what you can do once it's at this stage. This is probably one of the faster ways to deal with it, and I don't have to have cheese sitting on the bench that I'm looking after. I can just hang it today and then put it away in the fridge, and it still has a great goat flavour. So I just scoop the cheese curds into this bag. Yeah, so far this cheese, it takes little to no time to make. There's no heating up of the milk because it's just straight from the udder of the goat. And then you just scoop in the curds into a bag and tie them up. So this just takes a couple of minutes. The other step takes less than a couple of minutes.
The next day, you take your curds out of the cloth bag and place them in a bowl ready to stir through salt. Today I'm adding garlic, peppercorns and thyme to flavour my cheese, but you can use any flavour combination you like. Dill and lemon peel are also really lovely. Then I shape it into a rough ball with my hands and put it in the jar, covering with olive oil, and there's some more garlic, pepper and thyme added too. It's best left to marinate like this for about a week in the fridge, if you can hold back that long.
So the last thing I wanted to show you all is something that I make every week on the farm. It's Kefir. It's a really delicious probiotic drink. It's got a lot more probiotics in it than yogurt and really good for your gut, and apparently it's good for your immune system. I like the flavour of it anyway, so it's great that it has all these other health benefits. Now the traditional way of making Kefir is by using grains. You put the Kefir grains in the milk and you leave them to do their thing in the milk and ferment it, and then you strain them out, and then you just keep using those grains every time you make Kefir. I've done that before previously when I had Kefir grains, but I don't have them at the moment. So at the moment I'm just using where I get my cultures from to make my cheese. I can also get Kefir culture, so it's similar. I just add the yeast and bacteria in there without actually adding the alive grains. doing it this way, I've found there's little to no contamination, and it's very easy. I don't have to look after the grains. Obviously they're a living thing, and if you don't look after them when you're not using them, then they can die. This is really easy as well. You just pour the milk straight from the goat into a jar or a bottle. Again. People use coffee filters for filtering their milk, but that's like a one-time use thing, and I just prefer to use these reusable ones, but they just kind of flop sometimes. Of course, when I'm not doing it on camera, they never do. Like with yogurt and with my Chevre, instead of sterilising little measuring spoons and everything, I just sprinkle a little bit of the cultures over the top, and that seems to be fine. It always works. So I just do a like really thin coat of cultures on top, and then put these go back in the freezer. I have a sterilised spoon, I just stir. And I normally just put a piece of cloth over the top, so you want it to breathe so that it can ferment. You just want to cover it so no bugs or anything get in there while it's fermenting. It's about 1 to 2 days, depending on how warm your house is, how long this will be ready, and you can just tell by it getting to a thickness and just tasting it and seeing if it's sour. That is kefir, and I'll show you how it looks once it's fermented and finished. So you can see it came out thick and a little lumpy, but I don't notice that when I'm drinking it. Yeah, it's pretty sour and it's a little bit fizzy. So it is different to yogurt in that respect. They say it's one of the best things for your gut health, so we've certainly got fairly good immune systems here, so we haven't been sick that much, even though it's been the change of season. We've all had a cold, but it really hasn't affected us at all. We've just gotten on with our lives. So yeah, I'm hoping that it's the kefir that's doing that. So I'm just mixing up a brine for our feta here. I've just put about a little less than 1/4 cup of salt into a litre of water. I've probably made a little too much brine, but that's okay. Better to make more than too little. And the water's boiling just so the salt dissolves easily. And so it's sterile as well, because you can age your feta for like up to a year in this brine. It's ready to eat like after a couple of weeks in the brine, and it just gets better, I think, the longer you leave it in the fridge in the brine. It's really nice like a month in. It's also really nice 6 months in. It gets really like soft and creamy the longer you leave it. So that's just dissolved, so I'm just gonna have to let this cool, but I'll be putting the feta into glass jars and then pouring this brine over the top of it, and then storing it in the fridge ready to eat in 2 weeks time, 6 months time, whenever we get to it. Thank you.
Ta.
Ta, thank you.
Ta.
Thank you. Well, there you have it, guys. Here's all the things that we've made over the last week in the kitchen with goat's milk. So we've got the feta here in these 2 jars, a big jar of ricotta that we'll use for cooking, a jar of yogurt. I'll probably make more yogurt today with today's milk because we get through our yogurt pretty quickly, nice and thick. Kefir, that's still fermenting away with its cloth on top. And our absolute favourite, marinated Chevre. So all of this you can make quite easily, just fermenting goat's milk. So I hope you got some inspiration there, and if you're thinking about getting goats, as you can see there's a lot you can do, but also goat's milk is really great just to use in all your desserts. So anywhere that you can use cow milk, you can use goat's milk. And we honestly don't notice the difference of the taste once you start using it in desserts and cooking. And just drinking it raw, it's minerally and quite different to cow's milk actually, and we really like the flavour.
I guess if you're used to cow's milk, it takes some adjusting to, but now I prefer it to cow's milk, particularly in things like cups of tea. So really hope you enjoyed this one. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, share it with anyone that you know might be interested in getting dairy goats, or that you know has dairy goats and needs ideas. And thanks for subscribing if you haven't already. That really helps us out, and we'll see you at the next one.